The idea is people assume that inspirations are, something that maybe only comes to Moses or whatever, some prophet of God. And that creates a bigger chasm between us and God than is already existent or seems to exist. There is no separation between God and his creation, the Creator and his creations, its creations. So we have to understand that the spiritual path is not kind of like trotting along, plowing along through life and then occasional insights. The spiritual path is supposed to include ongoing and consistent inspiration. So that means, that's how practical it is. I mentioned weeks ago that Edgar Cayce once said that people can use meditation to achieve anything, to gain anything, to close their eyes, to be still, and they might get answers to questions. Many inventors have done that. Steve Jobs, who got a lot of ideas for creating new things, technical, says, he got his ideas that became Apple and all that when he went and sat in a Buddhist temple. I think it was in Northern California. He went and sat in a Buddhist temple, got still, and things started coming to him. And he was no special person. He's just you, he's just me. We're all the same in the sense that we're human beings, but one difference in us is that some of us realize that in being human, there's two ways to be a human being. One is to sort of segment ourselves away from spirit, and so we are crossed with God. Just like when you say star-crossed lovers, it means those who are, it's not on the stars, they are crossed. It is do not enter. Like the poison symbol, do not, right? So whether the cross is an X or a T, it still means the same. So we are either at odds with God, separated from God up here, and living a human life, or we're humans that learn to thin the veil, thin out the veil. Thinning the veil means, the veil is a symbol of judgment. The veil is a symbol of belief that we're separate. The veil is made up of the energy of opinions, right, wrong. And I don't mean that we don't have right. It's the duality of right and wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. That's duality. I'm right is different. See, if I'm really right about something, I don't mean right, like competing. When I'm in my right mind, when I'm thinking loving, when I'm thinking win-win scenarios, then I'm in my right mind. But when I'm right, you're wrong, that's duality, because there's two. There's another that is, I just feel right about this. Notice how I'm not saying, and you're wrong about this, because what does that have to do with anything? I don't even have to talk about who's wrong if I'm truly in my right mind. So it's something just to consider, just to be aware that we all can receive inspirations. And not only can we, it's our destiny to receive inspirations. Now think about that. Now, some of us, again, we say this person's really intuitive. This person's really guided. That's true. Some of us more than others. But do we ever stop to think or realize that that's a choice? That's actually a choice. It's not they're better. It's, wow. And we can all do this. We can go, wow, I love the way that person writes a song. They just tend to tune in and it comes to them. I love the way that person gets ideas or inventions. You don't have to say, wow, if only I were like them. We just learn to be more like that person, right? So just think in terms of how can I do more of that? What can I do to be more like that? I'm ready, I want guidance as a parent instead of, oh God, please tell me what to do with my children. Begging and yet not really getting insights. Believe. Yogananda says, ask like a child, mommy, please, be insistent. But he's saying, believe that you're going to get answers. Like, what's the point of bugging your mother if whatever she tells you, Mommy, can I? And she says, no. And you say, can I? Now you're just a spoiled brat. But the child that really knows what it's needing, for example, Mommy, the bus is coming, I'm going to be late. Oh, great idea, honey, let's get out there. Now you're calling on mother, looking for an authentic answer, an accurate answer, a helpful answer, actually is good. It takes you somewhere that you want to go. It gets you something that's necessary for today. So it's okay to recognize that my daily bread, my daily needs, and how can I have them covered today? What is in the way of my daily needs? Whatever that might be. I'm struggling because I'm writing a script for a movie, or I'm writing a song and there's a line missing. You don't have to, please, God, like begging from the energy or from the perspective that I don't have the answer. If you're going to beg, ask, it's okay, but there's a different energy to it. Ask like a child who's expecting a good answer, a helpful answer. Mommy, guess what? Such and such, the dog's trapped in the closet and can't get out. Mom can help it now. But the child expects some help. It wouldn't make sense to just keep walking around our lives asking from the heavens that we don't even understand where those are and what God is for something. It sort of doesn't make sense. So we have to raise our mind, our consciousness to a place. In one sense, we bow ourselves in humility. In another sense, we rise with the excitement knowing the answer is here. That's why affirmations work. We affirm that such and such is true. It's happening. Why do we affirm? Because that's the truth. There's a wrong life, a wrong world where everything's conflicted and hateful, and then there's a right world that's still right here. But that's the one most people don't live in yet. And there's variations of the right world, the real world, meaning on this side of the veil, the material world, guys, we have one perspective where we're asleep and we're just victims every day of the world. Then there's another perspective, and that's the real world. That's I now feel like it's like the Buddha level of consciousness. Wow, I get it. I see how things work. That's why A Course in Miracles is saying, you guys would save yourselves. You have no idea the levels and layers, years of misery you would save yourselves if you just practiced one little switch. And that's responsibility. The ability to say, I get how this works. See, when Buddha said, I get it, and they're saying, you're enlightened. Wow, you're amazing. Are you a god? Are you an angel? What are you? You're so different. What was his answer? I'm awake. You know what that means if you interpret it? It means I got it. I figured it out. Figured what out? Well, I figured out how all this works. How does it work? And it's not like he went into a spiel about multi, levels of creation and dimensionality and so on, complexities. He said, it's all an illusion. So it's okay to study what seems like the complexities, as long as you can do it with the intention of being awake instead of asleep. What's the difference between the two? If I study the complexities of the universe, biologies and new biologies, metaphysics, astrology, and on, all the things that are so cool, they're really, really cool to study. But if I study them thinking I'm little and they are big, I actually didn't get it. Those are the guys that say, oh, there's just so much of the universe that we just don't understand. So much of science, medicine, we just don't understand. Those comments, although they sound maybe accurate, they actually are subtle ways of reducing us because we keep ending up small. What a lot of people don't realize is the other way to do it is to go, wow, isn't this complex? Look at all this. Wow, it's amazing, amazing sciences and metaphysics and, just multidimensionality. And then to go, isn't it amazing? It's all an illusion. not only is it an illusion, it's an illusion I made up. And that's what Jesus is saying in A Course in Miracles. I want you guys to understand you made this entire thing up. Now, if we walk around saying that, it's going to maybe not set well with some people. So maybe there's other ways to word it along these lines. Yeah, we made this up, but another way to say it is we co-created all this. See, that one works better for people. If you say you made it up, then they're like, well, then I don't know what to believe in, and now I'm depressed. If you say we co-created it, they get kind of excited because it makes the ego feel a little still, validated. And the reason there's a difference between the two, I myself will say we co-created it because I know I'm speaking to people that it might be too much to say, use other wording. But the reason it's more accurate to say we made it up is because when you say you make something up, you know what that means, right? It means it's not true. If I say we co-created it, it can mean that it's true, at least in part, in some way, it's true. So the more accurate wording is we made this up. Now, I'm not going to emphasize either one at this point. I just made clear what those mean. All I want to say is that the universe as we know it is something we made up. It's something we dreamt up. And Buddha is saying, you dreamt it up and you can undream it. Whatever you think has vastness over you. Oh, we're nothing compared to the universe. We're nothing compared to the size of a giant redwood of California. It's all about demeaning us. We're nothing compared to. But our greater job is to say, wow, can you imagine something, the Grand Canyon, wow, and then say, yeah, I did that one. We co-created that. It's small. I'm not small, and it's giant. It is small to me. It's nothing. This is why both Jesus and Buddha said, in just slightly different ways, if you really, remember this, if you had the faith of a mustard seed, you could tell a mountain, get up and march into the ocean, and it would do so. Buddha said, if you had enough faith, you could split the Himalayas in two. They're both saying roughly the same thing, but what does it mean, the faith of a mustard seed? So you get people, from fundamental religions that kind of theorize about that, and they'll say, oh, faith in Jesus or faith in, they start kind of going into their religious perspective. What he's, excuse me, sorry. What he's saying is, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, meaning just this much faith, you could pull this off. But what does he mean? He means if you had the faith in who you really are, then you could do this. You see? Now, faith in who I am, is that like life coaching where I go, I got to have faith that I'm a good person? No. It's beautiful to do that, but that's not what he's saying. He's talking about faith in God and in you because God created you in its image. So really, you don't have to say, well, this isn't about saying I have faith in God up there somewhere, and therefore I'm now special, so I can demand that a mountain get up and march into the ocean. And remember, besides, it's not literal, because could you imagine all these little godling tyrants, throwing mountains from one end of the ocean to the other? It's not literal. It means any problem, anything. It means the entire thing, it's all equally dreamt up. Whether it's a planet or a bill you think you can't pay, they're all part of the illusion. And we, in our heads, think, well, I can wrap my mind around the idea of developing enough faith to get better at greater prosperity and paying bills. But mountains, and Jesus in A Course in Miracles says they're the same. There's no order of difficulty in miracles. They're all the same. They're all equally impossible or equally possible depending on your mindset. What mindset? Your faith. Faith in what? Who you really are. So this is not about faith in God, like I believe Jesus, or I believe God, or I believe any other name, Allah. Therefore, God's going to pay the bill for me. It's not about that. It's about, I have faith in the truth of God. And the truth of God, I am the truth of God. I am the creation of God. It's such a fine line to understand these things, because it's not about just positive thinking or coaching ourselves. It's not about the mundane levels of thinking. This is about the deepest truth, but we think it sounds kind of abstract and philosophical. Guys, the truth of God is who you are. You're not a theory of God. You're not a hypothetical of God. And you're not a untruth of God. Not that God could have an untruth, but the truth of God. Wait, me? Yes, you. I'm part of the truth of God? Yes, you are. Wow. And what does that mean exactly? God is, and God is love. God is peace, God is joy. God is, and I'm part of that. God is, I am, we are. God is, I am, we are, and so it is. So I don't have to say, once I start wrapping my mind around this, my mind expands and expands and expands. Wait, what does this mean? Yes, you can start off with meditating next to a tree and say, I can feel the sap moving through the tree the way I feel my blood, like I'm one with the tree. Excellent. You can do cranial sacral work as one, for example, healing art, and you can learn to feel as your hands are holding a person's skull or any part of their body, but you're holding the skull and just kind of joining with their body. The illusion of two separate bodies disappears, and we sort of dance energetically into awakening and opening the body more. It's quite beautiful. Now, how can I do that with my mind in all things? Meaning, if I can learn to move what seems like matter inside a person's body when I hold their head, how is it I can't move energy when I get a bill? In my mind, I can just start thinking, well, it's energy. Let me faith it, not pay it. Let me faith it. Let me get into the truth of who I am. And it gets kind of funny, like, like here I am made in the image of God, and yet I have a bill I can't pay. See, humans, what they do is the victim thing, which I said a few minutes ago. Oh, God, I can't believe this. God help me. Or I don't believe in there being a God because I can't believe the stuff that goes on planet Earth. Those are all victim concepts. When we get into the truth of God, and I mean this, there is no problem. When we get into the truth of God, there is no problem. There's a John Lennon song, there's no problem, only solutions. And we've all heard that phrase or that concept, but it's not even just solutions, because solution sounds like there has to be a problem to have a solution. It's beyond that. The wrong world, the world that we create of fear and hate, we're calling it the wrong world. The incorrect world, the inappropriate world. If you don't like the word wrong, fine. Find something else. But the illusionary world has two sides. The illusion where we're buying the illusion, and the illusion where we're starting to wake up. Which one are you? Just be honest. Ask yourself. And I think most people watching a program like this would say, yeah, that makes sense. I'm still in the illusion, but am I buying it, or am I starting to wake up? And most people, programs like this, they're going to say, I'm getting it. I'm starting to wake up. Thank God. And remember, there's a bunch of us out here. So find others like this so that you can have camaraderie in your awakening. That's why, why Jesus told John, the beloved, as he's dying on the cross, John, you're sad that I'm leaving, but this is really beautiful if you think about this, so please soak this up. Here's Mary beside herself, the Mother Mary crying, and John deeply in a dark place, watching his teacher, his master, die. And Magdalene was also there, and he's passing away, and they're just singing. it's your friend. I mean, forget the Christy thing right now. Forget all the religious stuff. It's a friend who has done only good, even if he's not a awakened, Christed being. It's a human being, and he's done nothing hurtful, nothing selfish, and he's only been helpful. Can you imagine somebody, doing such quantities and quality of good, and then seeing him physically beat up and crucified? I mean, it's really disgusting. But check this out. In the wrong world, meaning the ego-based world, that's all that happened. You have a victim, and it feels terrible. And that's how the world wants us to see life. And it is terrible from that particular mindset or set of eyes. But Christ and other versions of the concept of awakening, the Holy Spirit of God, God itself, wants us to do this. It wants us to say, well, there's one perspective. There's another perspective. Still in the illusion, not in the oneness of God perspective yet. In the illusion, there's two perspectives. The incorrect and the correct. Correct is still only temporary until we completely awaken, but incorrect is the hate and victim stuff. Correct is, wow, from all of this happening, this innocent, beautiful, awakened being allowing himself to go through this, to show people, that's how much I love you. That's the real world. That's the world where we're seeing things differently. We're changing perspective. It's where we go and start thinking outside of selfishness and thinking selflessly, thinking the greater good. I can't really get a lot of inspirations when I'm in the wrong world. If I'm in my wrong mind, I don't believe in God, or if I do, I'm unworthy. In the real world, meaning the right-minded world, we start to say, there's, and this is kind of beautiful, because the way to get to the real world is not just by praying, meditating. Choice making, proper choice making. So watch. I can pray and meditate myself out of the illusionary pain world into still on the earth plane, but a different way of thinking. I'm more together. I feel more together and more awakened, and I'm a co-creator, not a victim. That's what happens. So one way I get there is through spiritual discipline and study. But even if I pray myself into higher levels of consciousness, meditate myself into higher levels, you still will not stay there for more than a moment if or without being tested to see if you really get it. So you can say, okay, got it. I'm meditating and I'm sensing oneness. I feel a shift from the all separated, challenged, dualistic world into a sense of oneness. But a test has to come to see if you really believe that. And danged if those tests are not sometimes a real drag. And then humans go, how could this be happening? I'm praying and meditating and doing all these great things. I wear a crystal on my necklace and all these cool things, Why are challenges happening? You're back to why me? There you go, walking yourself right back into wrong-mindedness. And the ego loves it. The ego loves it because it can't allow you to just, I read a new book today. Wow, it gave me some insights. The ego doesn't go, oh, dang it. A person who reads, I can't do anything about that. It takes you and just beats your ass up, with whatever you think you know. Why? So you can either, it's hoping so you can fail and not really show that you got what you read, or so you can, Spirit's version of it is, I'm okay with you going through tests because I'm banking on each chance you have. One of them you're going to get it. If not today, I love you. Come home tomorrow. The next day you fail, I love you. Come home tomorrow. The Holy Spirit has forever. Time's an illusion anyway. Holy Spirit has forever to wait. But God is banking on us passing our test, the ego failing our test. that might sound like a traditional speech of good and evil, God and the devil, and all that. That's why the book of Job in the Bible uses the metaphor. It's saying there's a guy named Job, and he's doing pretty well on earth. He's living the real good life. And then the devil goes up to heaven, as though that's actually possible. The devil goes up to heaven, because if heaven's a certain frequency, if there's a devil, it wouldn't have that frequency, so it couldn't be there. But that's another story. So, devil up to heaven says, hey, God, how you doing? Hey, I'm doing pretty great there. Devil, how you doing? I'm doing well. I'm beating people up every day with emotional, psychological hell. Oh, sounds good. You got quite an occupation down there, don't you? Yes, I do. Listen, Lord, I was noticing there's this guy named Job living down there, and oh yeah, God says, oh yeah, God, wow, Job is quite the guy. Yeah, I've been noticing and admiring him. And then the devil says, yeah, but as they're having tea, sip, sip, I just have this feeling that if Job has it too easily, you'll never know if he's really got it. I think that if you let me test him a little bit, I'll bet he fails. God's like, I'll give you 2 to 1, So they're playing this game, God and the devil, and the devil comes back to earth and puts Job through hell. Long story short, it's the story about you and I fighting that, dealing with that, my doubts, my fears, my angers, and all these things. And Job's just like, oh my God, being wrung out. He's just really being beat up, but he's keeping the faith, just like, many goddesses and males and female, gods, goddesses on earth, historically, mythologies, as well as prophets and prophetesses of earth. And just also just simple human beings. It's the story of all of us when we go through our daily tests, especially the big ones, like when we go through the dark night of the soul, but we go through our tests, life's test. And God's saying, you know what, guys? Not only do I have faith that you're going to get it, it's inevitable. So, how long would you like this to take? The ego, which is, the devil's just a coat the ego wears for some people. The ego is banking on, I'm just going to keep wearing you people down. I'm going to wear you down. Even when you don't get it, I'm going to beat you up for not getting it. And when you think you get it, I'm going to beat you up for thinking you got it, so that you can never really know and have faith. That's why, as a teacher, I so often say, hey guys, how you doing today on a 0 to 10 scale? Where were you 5 years ago? Oh, I don't know, maybe a 6 or maybe a 2 or whatever. And then I say, now that you're studying and now that you're reading, that you're praying, meditating, doing yoga or whatever, how do you rate? And when you can say from a 6 to a 7 or from a 2 to a 8 or whatever it is, I ask you to please go, oh my God, thank you. By identifying it, it can help us anchor. I got it. So that the ego can't pull you from knowing you've changed back into, well, maybe I haven't. And we do have moments where we doubt that. And we do have moments where we've made changes, but they're not really solid enough and we weaken. But when we learn to do simple things like rating, it really brings us in and zeroes us in to be able to say, no, I'm going to own that I got it. I'm going to own that I made changes. I'm going to own that I might not have been a great parent 20 years ago, but I'm a good parent now. So that's it. Just fantastic. Like, if I don't get it, God cannot make me get it. So understand, God wills that no soul shall perish. God wills that we come home. It's as simple as that. And we will come home. We will all have an awakening. But right now, it doesn't look like this, where wrong-mindedness, fear, duality, hate, all kinds of crap of life, abuse, and trauma. No real world. We just go from that somehow, we just rise into heaven. That's what everybody's waiting for. Or they just assume trapdoor, boom, gone. You're going to go into hell. It doesn't work like that. It's true that this is a spiritual migration. You go from victim, hurt, traumatized, abused, to starting to get it. And the reason I go this way, remember, is because it's still in the material world. But on earth, here's the earth. I'm living on the earth as a victim. I'm living on the earth and I get it. And then you're awakened. I mean, maybe not perfectly all the time, but you're getting it. And it's important to say, I get that I'm getting it. I own that I'm getting it. Not, oh, I still have a long way to go. Why say dumb things like that? That's not God's will. It's not God's wording. Stop. It's true that I feel that way. So say I feel that way. That's not ridiculous. That's not stupid. That's not dumb. It's right. Sometimes I feel like I'm really not getting it. That's beautiful. Why is it different from what I said in the first place? Because when I say sometimes it's how I feel, it means it's very humble and it means I'm very vulnerable. Man, sometimes it's a lot, you know? As a mom or as a single parent or whatever, as an orphan, as a widow, as a struggling single person, not knowing if I'm ever going to find another partner. Sometimes, man, it gets really hard and heavy. That's pretty cool. Good job. See, by saying it feels that way doesn't mean I'm saying it's absolute. I'm stuck on this. I'm going to stick to this version of the story. As soon as I say it's just how I'm feeling, you already have affirmed without realizing it that it's only temporary. So it's okay to own that stuff. Just don't obsess on it. It's okay to own it. But my goal is what? Here's where I feel like I'm at today, but here's where I'm going. And the more I get used to identifying with the real world, the awakened self, not perfectly one with God yet, but I'm in the awakening process. And the more I can pull that off, the more I start staying there and less easily pulled back. So I'd like you to think about this for yourselves on a 0 to 10 scale. How are you at not being pulled back into it? Think about that for a sec. How good am I? I could say to you, if I'm reflecting, I remember being 17, 16, let's say. I would say on a 0 to 10 scale, I was probably only a 3. There were too many things still beating me up and pulling me into the pain world, the illusionary world. If I had something really great, oh my gosh, listening to a song that was inspiring or having some great prayer time in my room, I'd feel like an 8. But it really didn't take much to just knock the feet out from under me, knock the wind out of me, pull the rug out from under me, any metaphor you want to use. So my tenacity, my inner conviction as a kid was a 3. Now, it feels kind of weird to say that because that's kind of low. But I don't, you can judge me for it. It doesn't matter to me. It's just how I felt. It was a 3 at the time. It's how it felt. Do I feel that it's a 3 now? No. So ask yourself, whether it's, how far back you want to reflect, a year ago, 5 years ago, use a reference point to see some change. Where were you on that 0 to 10 scale once upon a time? And where are you now? Just rate the two. Have you improved? And whether you have or haven't, it's a point of personal reference. Just check that out. But also, I'm asking, with or without a past reference, where are you now? How good are you at holding the truth? And you should know that if you say, well, I'm a 7 or an 8, that's pretty cool. It's going to surprise you that one day what you think is an 8 today will look like a 4 tomorrow, not because you failed, but because you're going to be doing even so much better. The faith that we think is great today might look small tomorrow because we're going to be so further on, and it's quite incredible, and we deserve to be. It's who we really are. And we should wish and will each other to be in that better place. So think about that if you don't mind, just for a moment. How do I rate myself? My ability to catch myself when I'm slipping and bounce back, staying in my right mind. How easily do I get pulled off? And then, if you don't mind, ask yourself, what are the most likely things to pull you off? Is it relationship? Is it addiction? Is it, I only get pulled off when it's family? Think about what it is. Be honest. Of course, there could be more than one thing, but just whatever primary item, 2, 3, preferably not more than 2 or 3 so that the mind doesn't get all overwhelmed by it. But what kinds of things pull you off? For some people, it's, harm to the planet. I know all these things can hurt us and scare us and upset us, but which ones really tend to pull you out of right-mindedness, out of those moments when one minute you're like, God, when I pray and meditate, when I breathe and just enjoy nature, and when I'm really in a great state of God, as much as I know God to be for myself, when I'm really in a great state, what kinds of things can most likely pull me off? See what they are, and then do this with that. First of all, I'm on to you. I'm not only so awake that I am growing spiritually, I'm so awake that I'm able to look back at that part of me that's kind of the weaker area, the family or health or whatever the issues are that most trigger me. The loss of a loved one, whatever it is, look at it in the face and start being able to say, wow, I'm on to you. Instead of it kind of being hidden in the shadows, in the darkness, I'm on to you. I actually am aware of the things that most often and easily pull me off. Do you understand that if you're onto your weakest links, the next thing is you start working on it, and what was once your greatest adversary, the primary weapon of the ego starts to become unarmed because you've already worked on that. Don't be intimidated because we're calling it the biggest thing, biggest adversary. You don't have to be intimidated by that, but rather the opposite, like, I think I'll start doing some personal work in that area. I mean, my God, if it's addiction and it's my primary adversary, to me it's a great, huge issue. To somebody else, they might go, I don't get why alcohol is such an issue if that's, not for them. It's because we each have our cross to bear. So what's yours, what's mine, it's different. But all of ours is ours. It is a big issue to us. So don't minimize it and say, well, mine's so small compared to somebody else's tragedy. No, yours is still 100% yours, and it's yours to work on. But what's cool is we start working on that. If it's addiction, like I was starting to say, if it's addiction, I have a team of people in a recovery group that can help support me through that. That's kind of cool. I mean, if I live in an igloo on the North Pole and I have major issues, my entire family was taken, by a polar bear, it's not as easy to work on that, or it seems like it's not. Now, maybe, of course, you start doing prayer and meditation and you have internal shifts, of course, that's great. I'm just saying that be strengthened to know that if it's addiction, you've got a support group. If it's fear of being ending up alone, there are groups now to talk to, recovery groups, survival groups, whatever it happens to be. Do not do it alone if that's going to be one of your reasons to never recover. Make yourself come out if coming out is how you have to work on healing that. If owning addiction is how you have to do it, then do it. And if you say, well, no, I'm not comfortable with that yet, or I couldn't do it, I'm not going to be able to handle it, you're actually saying, not only no, I'm not going to work it, you're saying, yes, I want to stay messed up. Okay, well, if that's what you want to do, and say, that adversary Michael was talking about, that primary tool or weapon of the ego, it's too much for me. Just take a deep breath and say, I have to admit, I'm too intimidated. I will get to it, but right now I'm just not feeling like I can handle that. If that's what you need to do, do it. Because at least in doing that, you're admitting you still can do it. Because if you just only sink in the failure, you've done the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish. So just say, I will, I know I can, and I will, not today. You're allowed to do that. And it's kind of a bummer because then you stay in the broken self, in the pain self, but at least you're owning it, and you're owning that it will be. You will get there. Another thing that you can do is, I'm going to get there, also can mean we, the rest of us in your life, can start working to affirm you there. We can start sending prayers affirming that you're going to get there. And you will. There's no doubt. God is. God is doesn't mean God is sometimes. God is going to eventually do this or that. God is. That is an absolute. Anything related to God is, which includes we are, means that it's inevitable. So, God is, said in another way, is like goddess. And it takes the goddess in all of us, male and female selves, to say, I cannot birth, Jesus, the light that we really are. I can't birth that without my feminine self giving birth to that. And so that's the goddess, or God is, the acceptance of God is, allows me to accept the goddess, which is the part of me that birthed the Christ. And which is also known as Isis or Jesus or, other derivations from and buildings from that core word. But that true light, it's inevitable. So if I am hovering over here in the pain self, it's only a matter of time. And all I'm asking us to do is step up today and go, I'm going to start living over here a bit more in my right mind, and I can look back and see the other self, and I see which parts tend to pull me back. I'm going to see them and start dismantling them. Dismantling means healing. There's memories of old trauma pull me back. Start dismantling it. Start seeing a counselor. Start journaling. Do something about it. And again, you can say, well, I don't have the means. I live in an igloo in the North Pole. Then start carving out your personal process on a block of ice. Do it somewhere. Do something. Even if it's just in the mind, do something. There is no reason to actually delay other than our own fears. And we're actually not just afraid of what we have to look at when we face our adversary, which is just our stuff. Our adversary isn't actually an adversary, it's just our stuff, our unhealed wounds. So be able to look at that self and be able to say, I can do this. Don't sink into it's too much. See it, and if that's how you feel, fine, own that, but just know and celebrate, man, how cool, one day. Because we're all going. It's inevitable. And I know I've already said that, but I'm reminding. It's inevitable. It's really the good news of the Lord, as they call it. The good news of the Lord is not just the message of Jesus from 2,000 years ago. The good news of the Lord is, it's like God saying, hey, I have some great news. Not good news and bad news. I have great news. You are and remain as I created you to be. Oh, yeah, well, thank you, God, but I got some bills I can't... No, you are as I created you to be. You don't have bills because in me there is no such thing as debt. Really? Okay, cool. Well, the thing is, God, there's also this karma. No. The good news of God is that you are as I created you to be, and you do not have debt. There is no karma. Therefore, you can't have any issues. You can't be afraid. None of that's real. We're, however, given free will to say, well, I get that, but I want to have some garbage for a while. I want to have issues. And we're afraid of looking at those issues. But as has been said before, we're also afraid of light, of who we really are. I mean, it's weird to think that. And if you don't understand what it means that you're afraid of your light, it's enough to say, I am afraid of looking at my stuff, my darkness. So start there, because we're afraid of both, really. So as I'm drawing to a close, I pray this has all made sense, and or that any portion of it has made sense. It's really simple. It's deep, but it's also simple, and I love that. I love speaking, sharing that way, to be able to just recognize, wow, I can look at my greatest adversary and dismantle it, whatever it happens to be. Especially when I'm over here recognizing it's a dream and I'm the dreamer. I can change my dream. And somebody says, no, you can't change your dreams. I went to sleep. I had a nightmare. You can. It's called lucid dreaming if you get to the detail of it. But even if you have a nightmare and you wake up and you're already awake and say, I can't change it because I already dreamt it, you can. When you wake up, think of the metaphor here. When you wake up and say, I just dreamt this horrible thing and it ended in such and such a fashion. While you're still in that half dozy sleep, start imagining a different outcome than you had a minute ago. But the dream's over. No, it isn't. The sleeping dream's over, but you're actually still living in the dream here. So just dream it different. Dream a different outcome. And do it at the end of a day as well. At the end of every day, when you're done with your day and you look back over it and you think, here's one of those moments where I got sucked back in and I lost faith. Faith in God, faith in who I am, faith that everything is okay on some level, and I started believing in the problems. I remember doing that today, and I'm going to actually visualize it happening differently. I'm going to visualize my passing my tests successfully. You can do that even after the fact. And then what it'll do is weave a new reality down into the illusionary self so you can have a happier dream tomorrow. It actually works. Literally as an exercise, but if you only do it as a linear exercise, it's not as effective, not as real as when you actually start to get what I just said. Not just practicing it, but you actually say, I get it. I know why it works. Because it's all a dream. We are the dreamers of the dream. Or as Edgar Allan Poe said, life is but a dream within a dream. Okay, with that, I bid you adieu. Peace be with you all. Many blessings to you, and thanks for joining us again. Peace. Bye-bye.